Hey guys, so this is part 2 of the power of mentoring in animation. I already gave you a little preview of what we talked about last week, just in case you missed it. And now, tell me guys, in pounds or in kilos, whatever you decide, how much do you think this weighs?
About 400 kilos.
400, 500, something like that.
Jonathan?
I'm going to say 800 pounds.
Okay, super cool answers, guys, because this is exactly what I wanted you to see. That if I were to guess, I would be wrong. But if you guessed and I guessed and we average those out, it is pretty much what the weight is. So they did this experiment, which is really interesting, where 787 people guessed the weight of this animal, and it's exactly it's around 40 kilos, 540 kilos. So the crazy thing is that some people would guess 1 ton and other people would guess like 5 kilos. It doesn't matter, because when you average everyone's opinion out, you get the best result. And it's crazy. And that's one of this is in a book that I haven't read yet, but I heard about it and I think it's fantastic. And it's, you know how you're in a stadium and people start chanting and the sound sounds like amazing, like if everyone was so talented at singing, but you know it's not necessarily the case. If you isolate just one person and hear them singing, it may not be the best song and they may not be super talented, but the consistency of a group just joining forces together has a very, very good outcome. And it's interesting. Another thing I just remembered, there was another thing I heard where there was an experiment of a lot of people that were taking pictures of inmates, of people that were prisoners in jail. And they wanted to average out their faces to see if there was a face that would seem like the face of a bad guy. Like if we could tell by facial features that someone was rather evil, you know? And they averaged everyone's face out, and what they discovered is someone super handsome showed him in the picture, and they were like, wait a minute, what? This person is looking really, really handsome. And it's just because the average of many things, many opinions, many features, it gives you an outcome that's rather positive. So that is really interesting. If you take that knowledge and apply it to your team, it's great. Because sometimes as leaders, we think that because we have the most experience, usually because we're the leads, we think that we know better. And that's not necessarily the case, because when you listen to everyone around you and then you as a leader kind of average those things out, you have the best results. So that's why we work in teams, and it's way better than just giving instructions or receiving instructions. It's rather more a collective input of ideas. So right now I want to talk about constructive feedback. And it's hard. It's hard to give constructive feedback that is not harmful, because, you know, when you're an animator, it hurts, or you're an artist, or you're anything that you put some sort of creativity, love, hard work into, you think it's good because you have worked really hard, and then someone comes and destroys that little dream of yours, and it can be painful. So it's been a long journey for me. I'm a lead, and sometimes when I in my past, some mistake that I've done is to really baby an animator, like okay, you have to do this and this and this, like step by step, exactly what you need to, and that's not what they want, you know? That hurts, because it's like, I want to just provide everything I know, and I know that if you trust me, you're gonna have a great result. But then people have feelings, and people don't like to be told exactly how to do things, because they're like, okay, I'm a professional already, I'm in this industry, so don't tell me exactly how to do it, just tell me what you want. And I learned that, and I was like, oh, okay. So I guess I like when they when leaders guide me more, not everybody likes that. So being aware of where the animator is at, or the person that you're working with is at, and understanding how much feedback you can give him to improve what they have without actually hurting their ego, because egos are kind of delicate and you have to play with lots of different personalities. So if you can understand what they've done better and acknowledge the good thing about what they're doing, their progress, and then suggest something on top, it will allow the animator to be like, oh, okay, you're telling me that I'm doing something good. And sometimes we forget as leaders, we jump straight into the, oh, you know what's wrong? This. Okay, next. And if you do that, then they can feel like, oh, so my work is not really valued. I am not doing great. And you never want to transmit that. You want them to understand that you support them and they're actually usually doing things great. So, or one area that's good. And you want to be truthful, you want to be honest and straightforward. If something is not working, you can tell them like, hey, I gotta talk to you, this is not working. But they usually have something that is there, that is productive, good, and that can help the team. So always acknowledge those things. Take time to pause and give them the positive criticism and the negative criticism. So that way you will really support their development. And another thing that I've learned and I like to do is that when they show me whatever they're working on, before I start judging, because I can go, oh, this is wrong and this is wrong and this is, before I do that, I take a second and I ask, how's your progress? Like, what do you think about this? Tell me more about what you're presenting right now. And then the person sometimes tells you something that you were not expecting, like, oh yeah, sorry, like my Maya was crashing all day and I only got to clean the foot. And you're like, oh, like I was gonna give notes about the head and the toe and and they're like, I've just cleaned the foot right now. So it's important for you to also understand and have the dialogue of, okay, what am I actually gonna be judging right now? Because if I judge on other things, they're gonna be like, you know, you have animators sometimes that are so respectful, or people in your team. Every time I see animators, just take everything with a grain of salt because this applies to everything. You have people in your team who are very respectful, so they won't tell you. Like you can give notes for 3 hours on the head, on how the head is not working, and they're gonna be there like, okay, yeah, because they're so respectful. But deep inside of them, they're like, oh yeah, I didn't get to that part. Like I know that I needed to do that. So it's frustrating for everyone and you just lose time if you do it that way. These are very important things, which is just how your team as a whole can collaborate. And it is very important, like I said, to understand different areas of different ways in which people approach different problems and just combine all the solutions they can come up with together to really have a different outcome and a product that you can stand by and be very proud of as a team, because you know it's a team effort. You can see the final product and be like, oh, I contributed this much, and it's nice when you get that kick of it's actually my creativity that is shining through, even if it's a huge team effort like a movie. There's something about it that is mine and that I contributed with. It's a very beautiful feeling. So if you can help everyone in your team actually have that feeling, is great. And this is important, balancing artistic freedom and project vision. Sometimes you can want the team to be very creative because you always want to push them and make them feel like their word is being heard. But at the same time, you have a very strict thing that you have to follow. You know, for example, when I was doing Avatar or movies that are very plate oriented, like VFX, that you have already something that is already filmed and you have to add the animation on top. You can't change the camera because the camera was filmed in reality, and you can't change many things that are already there. The only thing you really can do is basically what they ask you to, and then change things just a little bit to add your opinions here and there. So as a leader, you need to be very, very, very honest and very open about this at the beginning, because I've been in projects where I felt that supervisors of mine don't give me that instruction. So they're like, go ahead and animate. And I'm like, okay, great. So I animate, and they're like, no, you deviated too much from the thing that they needed, which was this originally. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I copy that, and they're like, no, you're deviating too little. Like, you need to be more like this and like that, and think a little out of it. And it's like, whoa, it's hard. So it's better for the artist that you're dealing with to know exactly what they're supposed to do. If I, Jonathan, if I give you right now a shot, I need to tell you, okay, so you see how the layout is done. Okay, I will give you the Maya scene, and you will see the camera moves, the objects, and everything, and how it's placed. And your job is only to animate this character in a way that makes them feel bouncy, but he needs to remain exactly where the layout guy has him, like exactly on that area. You can't go away from it. And then you're like, oh, okay, cool. And you understand, and then you're like, you can be guided in that way, and that's better. So understanding that while allowing the animator to, like in number 2, express themselves, but knowing the limitations, the constraints of the project, and that everybody just does something that's consistent, the cohesiveness of the project. That's really important. And finally, building a supportive culture. I remember when I was doing a very stressful project, guys. It was crazy. People were pulling all-nighters. We thought we were not going to finish. It was a huge, humongous project that was really poorly executed, because from the get-go, everything was just messy. They were supposed to have really clean mocap, and they didn't. And then they were like hiding that from the client, and it was a mess. And this was back when I started. It's not right now in the studio that I'm in, but it was such a tough thing to handle. Yet the animators, we were so happy, guys, because it was such a good team. I was working with a team that was so fun, so cool. We would party a lot. We would have just a lot of fun every time we finished a little sequence or something. There would be some sort of celebration. So although the whole thing was messy and insane, I have such good memories of that project, because all the team was working in such a fun, beautiful way. And one thing that one supervisor implemented was that every time we finished a shot, every time one shot got approved by client, the person would stand up and hit a gong that he had like in the middle of, it was a little gong, he bought it off of Amazon, and everyone would go and continue working, so everyone would clap, and that person would get a Lego or like a little sticker, a little something, and we all collected them. So other team members could see how many Legos you had and be like, oh, okay, so you're publishing a lot, you're doing a lot. So that was such a smart thing to do, because you're as a leader promoting productivity in a very fun way. It doesn't have to be something expensive or huge, just little things that show the team that you're recognizing them, and that recognition is gonna make them want to go faster. Fostering support and respect within the team, that's always something you want to take into account. And positive team culture. We need to, as leaders, increase the morale of the team. I've been in situations where there are both things. One, a supervisor, for example, who tells you, guys, no, the client is like messing with us so much because they want something and they can't figure things. And then there's another one that says, oh, guys, so the client changed something, but here's how we're going to tackle it. And just like takes it with like a joyful spirit, and just tries to channel the criticism, the feedback, the turning of gears in a way that is not making the team feel frustrated, because when you have a team that's frustrated with the client, that they don't even know, sometimes they don't even have a relationship with that client, that's not smart. And that client can be the director, it can be a different company, it can be anything that you're working for. You really never, as a leader, want to put this against this, because you're a weak leader and you want just them to figure it out, you know? So that's really important. And I think those are some of my best examples of how this should be taken into account. And you as well have to be adapting to whatever's new in the world, new technologies right now with AI, trying to stay on top of the game, trying to understand Unreal, for example, and things like that will give you an advantage. And latest tools and latest software is very important, because it will give you like a step up compared to other people who are not aware of everything and how technology is advancing. So that is really important. And yeah, like the gong thing, just celebrating achievements. It's important to have milestones, and every time you hit them, you're like, guys, you're doing great. This is something that is actually worth celebrating. Because if you're only thinking about, oh, productive, let's be productive, you forget the humanity that's behind everyone in your team, and that's really important. So whatever big or small achievement is, just celebrate it and make the artists feel like they're valued and cherished. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you like that. And I'm here to hear any sort of questions you may have.
What was the movie in the last slide? I was just curious because
Oh, The Prince of Egypt. I love that movie.
Prince of Egypt?
Prince of Egypt.
Okay.
I love that movie. It's one of the best. I think it's my favorite movie of all times. It's gorgeous. DreamWorks, the Prince of Egypt. Super good. Any questions, guys? Anything that you want to share real quick before we end?
What I'm thinking about is when you guys are working on, I don't know, what I'm curious about is like when you're applying leadership. So like, let's say you have like the character and you're deciding like, okay, this is like the character psychology. This is how the way we want him or her to like move and all that cool stuff. How long does that usually take? So that way everybody kind of understands like, this is how the character is supposed to like function in the world, like how they're supposed to behave.
Yeah.
And like, how do you like sort of like catch yourself from going to like, because you're still trying to figure it out too, at the same time everyone else is trying to figure it out also. So that's what I was kind of wondering if you had any like experience with that.
Yeah, actually, that's a really, really good question. You usually have an animation director, and sometimes there are people within your team that are specifically assigned to give the personality to a character. And then everyone as animators, we kind of, while we animate, we show that to them. And they're the ones who are like, no, you know, that character would never do that. It would never be sassy, or would not approach this line with that kind of personality. Or another thing we do is that within the beginning of the project, you figure all these things out. And that's even before you start animating, you have to do all these animation tests to see how heavy your character is, how their expressions work, if they're a character that always has their eyes like that. You have to figure all those things at the very beginning. And so also another thing they would do is they would usually, in feature film, they would have a pose library. And within that library, you would see exactly the shapes that the character kind of hits and know how the character behaves. And so every time you hit something that's kind of pushed, they will tell you, no, you're off model. That's a lingo we use. This is off model. When you grab some thing of your character, some like the lip corner or the eye, and do some expression that doesn't really look like the character, they're gonna tell you this is off character, but just a little adjusted this way. So as an animator, it's tough, because if you're working with like 5 characters, you need to understand the way each one moves their mouth, their hands, their expressions. So it's tough, it's challenging, but it's a lot of fun. Yeah, that's a good question. We have 5 minutes. Any other questions, guys?
Do you get actually the time to do that on like games projects and like
Depends. That's a good question as well. Depends. I have worked in projects where I get the fortune of doing that exactly, like being with the client from the get-go and trying to find what the project is gonna look like. And sometimes you don't, but a lot of times you enter a project and this is already established. So you as an animator don't have to worry too much about creating that personality or those reactions, or because it's kind of established, so you know what your goal is. And you sometimes, if you're working on a sequel, for example, you're like, oh, I can just refer to the last one and understand what the character would behave like. So that is easier. But both are really cool and both have their challenges. Yeah, thank you for asking. Yeah.
So would you for a shot create those poses or in a pose library first to get a feeling of what the character would do, and then you actually animate the storyline, right?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes they are already crafted by that like animation director or someone who is like, oh no, yeah, I know what this character is gonna look like. And they provide you with those. So for example, there's a smile, or there's like a hand pose, or there is like a body shape that's the like an idol pose, or things that your character will always hit. And you know that they will always hit that. So if you can just go back and check those that are pre-made for you usually, then you just grab them. Or if you create like a hand shape and like that, and you show it to your boss, whoever that is, and they're like, that's a really successful hand shape, then you can grab it and do your own pose library of things that they find successful. And so that's another way of where you can build your own library. So a little bit on the client side or whoever is directing, and a little bit on you as well.
Do you have dedicated plugins that you use for these libraries, or
A lot of, yeah,
or do you
a
something
lot
like
of
sorry, or do you use that studio library plugin that's
pretty
out?
much. Yeah, a lot of studios use that like what's it called?
Studio library?
Studio library. Yeah, the professional version or the student version if you are a student. But yeah, you can always use that one. And sometimes the studios do have their own libraries, but I really like that one, and that's another one that's used professionally a lot. Yeah. We have 2 minutes. Anything else, guys? Anything else in your minds? No, you're good. Oh, well, that was amazing, guys. Thank you so much for visiting. I'm so glad I met you, Pierre, and we're here for whatever you need. Feel free to reach out to me. These guys message me, and we just have a closer relationship by talking, and they ask questions and they send me their progress and things like that, and I'm always checking. So whatever doubts you have, I'm here for you. And thank you guys for joining today. Have a lovely weekend, guys.
You too.
Thank you. Adios.
Bye bye.
Bye.